the great
Mark,
author.
Baldy, what's up? Can you hear
what's
me?
going on, buddy? How are you, man?
I just had to unmute. It's very complicated for me these days.
Yeah, no, no. You're too busy
Mute,
writing
unmute,
to understand
stop
this
the
technology.
video.
But Mark, you're actually right, pen to paper versus all this technology that's out there. AI ain't writing this book on Mike Tyson. Now
Who
with Mark
knows?
Kriegel in the house.
Who knows? What's up, Baldy? Hey, I thought everyone forgot about NFL Network.
You know,
But I was on. Wait, I was on First Take. I was on First Take the other day, and Molly Karam like starts off with a photograph of me dressed as, I don't know, Rex Ryan. I think which Ryan? One of the
Rob,
Ryans.
Rex, who knows?
yeah.
And you know that like that stuff is I blocked it out.
Hey, Mark, that show didn't have it didn't have a long shelf life when we were getting in there at midnight every night.
Wait,
Get ready for that show.
I don't really think Cuz truly understands. And Cuz does understand how neurotic I am.
Yeah.
And like, see, this is the first time on TV, and it's like it's a real TV job, like makeup and this and that and the other thing. And I was a good general columnist, but I was no football specialist. I don't know how the hell did I get this job.
Right.
So we go in. I'm prepping all day. I get in there 11:30 at night. I'm a nervous wreck. I gotta do all these like back and forth segments. And we're on the air from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. At 7 a.m. I'd go to the gym. It was nuts. Like, I have flashes like, did that happen? Did that happen?
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it actually happened until Molly shows me this picture. Like for Halloween, they made us dress up as whatever football people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway,
got me through it.
Mark, I know Cuz wants to talk, but like, congratulations on the book, man. I know
Thank
this
you so
is
much.
Anybody that has read your book, any of your books, Mark, know that it is a true labor of love. And that's, people get to read it, they get to talk about it here with you. But everybody that gets a chance to read one of your biographies is going to be so entertained. They're going to be thankful that they got a chance to do it.
Hope you're right about this one, pal.
You first of all, you know it. Yeah, Baldy, he told me I needed to be drug tested yesterday because I was saying how great, to me, one of the greatest writers of our time. And Baldy, because Baldy's a great, voracious reader, understands it.
Big boxing fan.
Huge
Big boxing
guy.
fan.
And
but Mark, we grew up in Philly here with the Blue Horizon. Like, I remember Buddy Ryan coming in with he trained boxers after he got done coaching, and he brought a fighter in, Mark. Now they love Buddy. He walks on water, Philly. He brought a tomato can in to the Blue Horizon, and and they booed Buddy out of the gym. You know what I mean? Like, it was the ultimate, like, everybody, you could be next to a millionaire, you could be next to a bum, it was the ultimate caste system in the Blue Horizon.
There is a phenomenon that's, I think, unique to boxing. I'm not sure it quite works like this with MMA. I haven't seen it, and I'm sure it'll change as MMA has already come of age. But what MMA, the difference between MMA and boxing, to me, and no way mean to diminish MMA, is that boxing has a past. And boxing past is so, even its corrupt past is rich in story. It's one of the ways Mike Tyson was built, with this direct appeal to the fans and the fans' fathers' sense of nostalgia. That's unique to boxing. But there is a sense that team athletes in team sports judge themselves in comparison to fighters.
Yeah.
And it's a weird phenomenon, because in team sports, I mean, I know that you got a camera, especially in football, someone's recording everything you do. But in a sport like boxing, you are out there really, really alone. And I always thought that other guys who play team sports wonder how they would do as a fighter. And it also seems to me fighters are much more popular, more prominent in the minds of other athletes than they are with the general public. Because I mean, if you look at where boxing is today, it's on the lowest rung. But in the way that boxers, fighters are judged in relation by other athletes, it's much higher. Same thing's true, by the way, with like boxing cinema and boxing literature.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's better for the writers than it is for the fighters.
yeah. Well, characters, just the idea of the brutality of it. I mean,
Well, Raging Bull.
it was the
Raging Bull
best,
captured it all.
you know?
Yeah, but it's funny, but it works. Like Raging Bull, to me, for all the brutality, it's an art house film. It is a purely artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
Rocky is like a perfect film, but it is a purely popular film. It's not.
Right.
I mean, I would argue that it's art, but it's a different kind of art, and it doesn't aspire in the same way that like Raging Bull does. But they're both intense and memorable experiences in the general public's mind. You don't got to be a boxing fan to give it,
Right.
what about either.
Yeah.
Well, part of it too is you talked about it having a past, and the past comes to life. Which is even to today. Like when you think about this arena of Vegas or you name it, where these fighters, these gladiators are coming in, like we all have that picture of it, and it's bigger than life. It's the ultimate, right? It's you against someone else, and I think those athletes. They aspire to that. Look, you're Baddest Man. There is no better title than heavyweight champ. If you were the heavyweight champion, you were the baddest man on the planet. That was a title.
I mean, in America, yes, it was once the title. It is no longer. I mean, who's the heavyweight champ?
I know. I know.
It's Klitschko. It's Klitschko.
But he's not. He's a great fighter. His name is the guy who has the most belts is Alexander Usyk. He's a great fighter. He beat Tyson Fury, but Usyk is Ukrainian. Fury is an Irish traveler from the Manchester area in Britain. The heavyweight division is no longer a predominantly American sport. I mean, I think it's pretty clear what happened is that, I mean, if you're a big athletic kid, would you rather spend your post-adolescence in an SEC athletic dorm, or you want to be at a sweaty ass gym in Philadelphia? No offense, or anywhere else, or in Brooklyn or LA. If you have those kinds of gifts, I know where I'd be headed.
Well, it was also the immigration piece, right? Like when you look at, you go back into this country and the way out was a lot of times through boxing back then. So,
but I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that boxing for sure, and it became part of the marketing strategy for any number of fighters. They'd be like Irish fighters that put on a Star of David. Jewish fighters. Now this neighborhood, you're wearing a shamrock. Whatever. So it was always. It was ethnic, racial, tribal, local until you became national. Guys who got the short end of the stick consistently to today in that calculation, just to be frank, are black fighters.
Yeah.
Have always gotten screwed. And I mean, before Jack Johnson, after Jack Johnson, it's a separate program. But it's curious that Tyson, and one of the things this book attempts to deal with is why are we addicted to this guy? Because there's no phenomenon like it in my lifetime. I don't know of a better comeback story. And cuz you were there when every third day I write that Tyson was a piece of garbage. Now, sometimes I was right. Sometimes, Kriegel, you're way overboard. You're a schmuck. And sometimes I was on the edge. And when you start doing a column, young as I did, especially in New York or Philadelphia, maybe Boston, tell me about when you came back to Philly. Like there's always a sense, oh, you got to be a tough guy. When you go in the locker room, you can't take any, you know what.
Yeah.
And some of that is like, you know, adolescent preening, and I'm ashamed of it. The interesting thing, or one of the incredibly interesting elements about Tyson, is that he was built in a very conscious, intended way to be retro back in the 80s. So what he was hearkening back, he wasn't the Sonny Liston. They were scared to death. His handlers, oh my God, what if we sell another Sonny Liston? What if they know he's a bad kid? Never mind that they didn't understand the audience, and that as hip hop was emerging, the world was ready, I would argue, for Sonny Liston. But they sold him as Jack Dempsey. And the first component of his professional fan base didn't come from black neighborhoods, but white ethnic, you know, neighborhoods in and around the Albany, greater Albany capital region area of New York. And this was this is the guy your dad would have rooted for. And he was designed as a particularly, to hit a particular demographic, and he did. I think in the long run, Larry Merchant tells me this in the book, I'll shut up in a second, only Don King truly realized how broad and intense his appeal would be. But I'll shut up now. I got way ahead of myself. Unless you want to make it Baldies.
Well, but Mark, did you? Tyson had that sham of a fight last year, right? And so he survived. Like, we all went to watch it. We all thought he had some sort of. He's Tyson. He had a chance. Did you get a chance to talk to him?
No.
For the book after that fight?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I thought I wouldn't call it a work entirely. I think like Tyson came out, took a shot, and then Jake Paul did everything he could not to knock him out. That's my interpretation. Right. Haven't spoken to either one of those guys. By the way, I think Jake Paul's a pretty good promoter, and he hustles. And but I see that fight a different way.
Okay.
It drew 108, I think 108 million. What do you call? I know we got three. I'm sorry, Baldy, don't kick my ass. We got three old farts here, right?
Yeah.
But 108 million live streams, or with click, whatever the.
Right. Okay? I got you.
So what Netflix wants to establish a presence in live streaming. That means sports, right? It's the one thing that like TV still does. And Jake Paul, who's a very astute promoter, understood that too. He can't do that kind of business with anyone else on the planet.
Right.
You know, for all of his promotional abilities and all of his like followers and all of that stuff, he realizes the only guy I can do this kind of number with is Mike Tyson at 58 years old.
Right.
Now, I think there were some ancillary benefits. The two fights that preceded that on the card, no one would have ever seen, including Serrano-Taylor 2, the women's championship fight.
Okay.
So I think it actually had some ancillary benefits for boxing. But the question is, why a 58-year-old guy, you know, who's thriving in the smoking marijuana business, God bless him, right? Why this guy commands that type of attention at 58 years old? My argument is the answers to the question or the riddle is in this book, but because of the particular way that he was built, which will never done before, and certainly will never be done again.
Well, you're right in so many ways, because, you know, his greatness. He didn't.
His greatness in the ring lasted a very short time, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like so, but it was the way he did it. It was his division of coming out in the ring. Like, you close your eyes, there was nothing like him coming in bare bone with the towel, the way he was built. He was the ultimate picture. Listen, as you know, beautiful as Ali was, right? Bulldog Frazier, the whole thing. Tyson just felt like the personification of brute. And I don't know, we were captivated by it.
Right. But there are a couple of elements that went into that. I mean, like more than a couple. You know, we spoke twice, but not as interviews, but basically to establish sort of ground rules. Because I try never to do like an as told to, and
Right.
I had no expectation that Tyson is going to sit down and tell me his life story again when he has 2 volumes of autobiography on the arm, you know, because he likes Mark Kriegel, who, you know, demonized him in the 1990s. And I do think differently of him now. But one of the things when I started to actually look at it, and I didn't want to do this book, didn't want to do this. But I owed the publisher money, and I thought about it and thought maybe I could do some kind of an essay or cheat, because I didn't really want to confront the guy I was or what I had written when Cuz was busy deifying me as an even younger and sillier guy. But I'm just joking. I love you. You know that, right? But in our conversations, I said to him, listen, I'm not sure Cus D'Amato, the guy who got him out of like a juvenile detention center and started training him, I'm not sure he did you nothing but favors in that the usual progression for a fighter, you know, kid who's been in trouble. Hey, listen, kid, we'll get you working. We'll see what you have. Maybe we'll put you in the gloves, and who knows, you go back to school, see if things work out. And maybe one day you'll turn pro, or maybe one day you'll even fight for a title, champ. And the kid goes, yeah, coach. Okay. In the case of Tyson, he comes out, he performs on audition for D'Amato, and D'Amato immediately declares, here's going to be the youngest, the greatest, the best, the baddest, the meanest, the most immortal. And I said, Mike, you know, what this guy's asking you is not to turn pro or trust you with your career or your life even, but he's telling a 13-year-old kid, make me immortal. And so there's nothing in between that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, make me live forever.
Right.
Now Tyson pushes back on it, and I understand, because in his mind, Cus D'Amato was responsible for getting him out of lockup and giving him life. But my question is, if a guy asks you, make me live forever, well, what's the price?
Right. Right.
Because there was, man.
Right.
I would say, Mark, you know, you're talking about how unique the creation of Mike Tyson was. Like the beginning of the end. You said it wasn't a long run. It wasn't. But I would say that anybody that followed boxing or any sport fan will remember where they were when Buster Douglas knocked him out.
Or when he knocked out Spinks. This book actually ends on the Spinks fight.
Okay.
With Trump ascending.
Yes.
You know, after Trump,
Not
not
in
a
1
political
second.
statement, but after Trump completely screwed up the whole USFL, he sets his sights on boxing. Boxing's kind of perfect because it's a great haven for narcissists. And the plan he had made a lot of sense. What he needed Tyson for was to move the power, the capital of boxing, from Vegas to Atlantic City, specifically to his casinos, because he saw the effect that Tyson had on the drop in his casinos. So it was a pretty rational calculation. And, you know, he built a tunnel from the Taj Mahal. I don't think it existed quite yet, but from Trump Plaza directly to the convention center. So, you know, you wouldn't have to mix with the riffraff. But that's the height of his career. The reason why it takes off, I think, is because it's fortified. The first element of it is this beautiful story of Cus and the Kid. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there were elements, it certainly lacked nuance. There were elements that were counterfeit, and there were elements that were true. But the story itself was so poetic, and it was written in great measure by some of America's best newspaper guys. And Cus had charmed great writers for decades. I mean, I'm going through the clippings of Cus and Floyd Patterson, who was his first youngest champion who he got out of a juvenile prison in Brooklyn. Okay, that's how, when Cuss was good, he was really good. But I'm watching that account and I can see a famous writer by the name of Gay Talese actually learning to write, becoming Gay Talese, until he does his famous Esquire piece on Floyd Patterson, which says, and it's germane in the case of Tyson, that what fighters fear more than getting beat up is humiliation. And you always, and it's really important in explaining Tyson. There's three elements in any fight. It's you, it's the other guy, the other girl now, and the audience. And getting your ass kicked is one thing, but getting your ass kicked in front of people, that's a whole different dynamic. And if people see you get your ass kicked, then it's much more difficult for you to be scary. And the irony is that D'Amato, who had this extraordinary, beautiful, almost theological sense of fear and how you have to stand up to the bully and how you defeat a bully and run across the ring and punch him in the mouth first. In Tyson, he created the greatest, most theatrical fear machine ever in the history of boxing. It's really kind of extraordinary. And Mike's greatest weapon became redirecting his fear onto the other guy, to the point where, and I'm dealing with his early career, but you can see it still in his later career, and you can still see it in the way we're attracted to him. Matchmakers had to literally push guys out of the dressing room to go
fight,
to go face it. And by the way, these are not all tomato cans. Like,
No,
we just made them look like tomato cans.
Right, like
these are trained American heavyweights. The other element, so you have this beautiful story of cussing the kid that's going to attract intense coverage for a long time. Then you have the knockouts themselves. And if you remember Trevor Berbick, for instance, the first time he won a title in '86, his first heavyweight title, he falls in every corner of that ring, which reinforces when it's replay. This is the first generation who has VCRs. So for the first time, you can play it back, if not on demand, then something pretty close.
Yeah,
you can see it again. It's not like you can call up YouTube, but they're preserved in a way that's somewhat accessible. So the quality of these knockouts are unlike anything that anyone's seen, certainly on video before. What his handlers do is make a collection of all these spectacular knockouts, send it around to every sports editor, every local news anchor or sports anchor in the country, because now you have a way to distribute it. You put it on a VCR tape, send it around the country. So it gets run there. And the last element is very much like professional wrestling, which I think you don't have to be a fan, but it helps if you want to understand America, to understand wrestling, is what wrestlers call a promo. When you put the mic to Tyson, you don't know what the hell he's going to say, and the quality of his voice, like you're trying to reconcile the high pitch and the lisp with the destruction that you've just seen.
Yeah.
You go, oh my, are you kidding me? Well, I got to watch this kid again.
Yeah.
And I think those are the elements that made us addicted. By '88, when I came on to the news and the Daily News in New York, his life was coming apart. And I think, looking back in retrospect, maybe this is just from my years, but the marriage to Robin Givens, the crack up, the additional crack ups. I hate to say it, but that's another element, voyeuristic and nutty, that made us addicted to him too. To me, that's like the genesis of tabloid culture.
Yeah.
Now I'll shut up, fellas. Sorry.
No. You get into the Spinks fight, which is fascinating because that's where his fear is at the height, right? Like, because you talk about the phantom punch and you saw his face, like you saw the fright, the pure fright that Spinks had.
Look, there's one thing it's important, I think, not to lose sight of, which is how good Spinks was and how courageous he had been in his personal life and in his professional life. Larry Holmes was not a good fighter. He was one of the greatest ever. Mm-hmm. And I don't care where or how he beat Larry Holmes. He beat Larry Holmes at least once. The second fight is more debatable, but it wasn't like he was going in with a chump. And, even when I talked to Spinks, he goes, I didn't really have any great ambition to fight Mike, which is honest. And I mean, he fought a terrible fight because I think he listened to Butch Lewis, his manager, over his trainer, the great Eddie Futch, who said, listen, you got to box him for first few rounds. And Eddie Futch had a theory, never really disproven, that after 6 rounds, Tyson became something different. But Butch Lewis says, no, man, you run across that ring, you get your respect. Great idea. So it turned out.
Yeah. Wow. It's so interesting because when you think back to Evander and Holyfield, he had never had any fear of him. I remember sitting in Evander's hotel room at the MGM Grand before the first fight, and he's like, I'm going to win.
Are you kidding me?
What?
Before their first fight.
Yes. And he said, I'm going to win, and I want you to bet on me right now. I remember this is well before the fight. Tyson was 25-1, and I remember walking by the sports book going, I had $100 in my pocket. I should put it on Evander. And I didn't, which was stupid, right? Because the conviction in which he spoke was nothing like I'd ever heard of. Like he said, he called him, he goes, he's a bully. I'm not afraid of him. I know how to win. I'm going to come and go toe-to-toe with him in that way. And he led with his head, like all the things. But he didn't have a fear. And I think that's the crux of what you talk about. It's fascinating that we're talking about the element of fear.
No, but it goes deeper than that.
Real quick, guys. We're in overtime. I just need to say that. We're in play the graphic.
Am I going to turn into a pumpkin or something?
No, we're in that means we can go longer and longer and longer.
Overtime. Do I get paid more?
Overtime. Yeah, you get big dollars.
Hey, real quick, cause I got it, Mark. I'll see you down the road, Mark. I'm gonna pick up the.
Take care, Baldy.
Nice showing you guys.
Boosh, and let him know about tonight.
I'll let you know.
All right, later, brother. There he is, Baldy. We continue our conversation with the great Mark Kriegel. Please go into this element of fear.
So, first of all, the fight you talk about. The fight before that for Evander was Bobby Ches. And he looked so bad, so uninspired that I don't know what you wrote, but this genius said, oh, Don King finally found a way to legally have someone murdered in the ring. This is how low we've gone, right? No one had any faith in Evander except Evander Holyfield. But, and again, this volume ends long before that. But from the time they were teenagers, in the same circles, Evander watched Tyson take his first loss as an amateur. I think he was 16, a guy named Al Evans. Now, there's some debate over what actually happened, how bad it actually was. I did manage to reach Evans, but I was talking before about the audience, and in the audience that day was Evander Holyfield. He says, "I've seen him lose. He's a kid too. I guess he was a light heavyweight the whole way through.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was 168 or it's probably 175 the whole way through. But in any event, he had seen it, and he never had to demystify Tyson, and he never lost faith in himself. Like in this respect, Evander was like Ali. God chose me to do this. I'm the greatest fighter in the world. That's it. Now that same mindset kept him in, I think, too long. But that's what you need. And there's a scene at the end of this book, after Tyson does away with Spinks in 91 seconds, and everyone's declaring him the greatest ever. Well, the greatest, hits harder than Dempsey, hits harder than this one, Jack Johnson, Ali, whatever. A guy, I forget who it is, from Philly. I'm remiss in not thinking of his name, is interviewing him. And he goes, and Evander's just like, Evander's not even, he might have just started fighting cruiserweight. Maybe, I don't know. Evander says, hey, how can he say he's the best when he hasn't fought me? And it's like a quiet voice in the wilderness. But all the seeds are there. So are the seeds of Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis spent, better part of a week in Catskill sparring with Tyson. It's I thought it was a pretty good scene in the book, and pretty, it does anticipate what would happen to them both.
What do you wind up feeling about Cuz after all this?
You got to understand, for me personally, Cus was very important to a guy who was my rabbi in the business, Pete Hamill, the great, for real great Pete Hamill.
Yep.
And Pete wrote this wonderful romantic piece, Up the Stairs with Cus D'Amato, as a eulogy. And it's really like, I want to live in that New York. That was the city I romanticized about. The writers wrote about the fighters and politics.
I mean, you mentioned Gay Talese, and it's like those.
But I mean, it was, Anyway, but Tyson had, and this is another peculiarity, Tyson had literary cachet before he had street cred, and it's an important part of the phenomenon because all the broadcast executives are looking to, the better writers, particularly in New York, getting their cues as to where they should be, what they should be buying. It wouldn't have worked if Tyson couldn't have fought. But to answer your question, I had a different take on D'Amato, certainly than Pete. I mean, I think that there's a kind of Frankenstein element here. Tyson again pushed back on that, but I've written and spoken extensively about the need for a fighter to be a narcissist and have a great ego. He just can't let it go break the seal. But this is a story that's largely set into motion by the ego of the trainer. And you can look on Cus as a visionary, as a prophet, also as a batshit crazy. And it's difficult to disprove. They're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
So yes, he did pull out Tyson. Yes, he did make him for a time the most feared fighter. He will always be remembered. As Mike told me when he pushed back, he says, well, he asked me to make him live forever. Well, didn't I? Yes, he did. Again, what price?
Right. Yeah.
They cut some corners. The one word Mike never heard was no. I don't think that stood him in good stead in the rest of his regular life. So there you have it.
How do you mentioned your reservations about doing the book, and I remember those pieces that you wrote. I remember that.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to actually kind of go and kind of revisit that whole world and coming up with a different?
Yeah. I haven't really revisited all that stuff yet because it was the book doesn't get up to the 90s. I deal with some of it.
Right.
I deal, there's some, for a biography, and this is supposed to be like a kind of essay. It turned into a biography because Tyson generates so much story. But I have to love the subject. Like the subject can hate me, but I have to be able to love the subject to live with one of these guys for this many years. And So my first reaction is, no, I can't stand the guy. I'm not going to do this. And then I thought about it, and you get older, you get your ass kicked, you look at things differently, you kind of wince at all the stuff you thought was like 1,000% true, and how big and bad you thought you were. And in the most fundamental sense, I'm looking at Tyson now, and the book begins, even though it ends in '88. It begins with a scene of him in Orange County, California, of all places, right, watching his kid play tennis, and he should be dead. By any account, he should be dead. By his own account, and it's better to judge a guy, not by who he knocked out, but by what he survived, which in Tyson's case is a whole hell of a lot. Like, a broken mother, an absent father, a neighborhood that, like, ghetto doesn't do it right. It's a complete dystopian. It's like
Yeah.
it's like Mad Max.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nuts. It's bands of kids and block after block of rubble-strewn buildings and abandoned tenements, and then in the middle of it, someone has this great idea to throw up the biggest concentration of like housing projects outside the Soviet Union. So it was completely nuts, intensely violent. He overcomes booze, coke, molestation, incarceration as juvenile, incarceration as an adult, and the kind of fame that will, a dose of fame that will kill you, like Elvis.
Yeah.
So, that's a state of insanity.
Yeah.
So that's how I got there. He was never, I've said this before, but I'm embarrassed to say, but it's true and it's important, that he wasn't real to me. I covered him.
Right.
But he wasn't really real to me until I saw him in 2012. I was doing a column for Fox, and I saw his one-man show.
Yeah.
In preview, and it wasn't like polished up yet. Spike Lee hadn't gotten a hold of it and made it, Broadway worthy, but it was raw, and I found the rawness itself attractive. And he's going through this story, and all of a sudden, this guy who had, never wrote a damn nice thing about, I'm holding back tears. And I see him after the show to do the piece. I say, hey, and you got to understand, my entry into the Tyson story was not as a sports writer. It was covering like I was a general assignment reporter, like running around in New York in the age of crack, by the way.
Yep.
And many of those like famous stick-up kids who became big drug dealers were his contemporaries, his colleagues, as if you will, on the street.
Right.
So he asked me, he goes like, I remember like the night city editor tells me to go up to Harlem, he just got into a fight with Mitch Green. And he says, really what that was a guy's life beginning to implode. Tyson's. And he says, well, what was that like? What do you mean, what was that like? What was that like? Think about it. It's a rush, it's adrenaline, it's like a drug. It was like getting high.
Right.
And he kind of nods at me, not like mocking, but in acknowledgement. And that was the first time he became like, real to me, like a human.
Go back to that night for a second. The Mitch Green.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember from it? Like really, really remember from it, and your takeaway.
I remember being on the street. It was still dark. I want very much to get something that I could, that'll make the paper. There are a lot of nights like that. I remember a couple weeks later, and now like the PR forces and the money forces are making moves. I remember getting a call that he had like ripped up the mansion in Bernardsville. He's throwing stuff around. And it was a tip, but I knew the tip was good. So we went with it. I'm just typing, man. I'm like, yo, I got a scoop. Some guy says, "Here, I'm telling you this.
Of course.
Take this down." So again, it wasn't. I didn't have at that time. I didn't have the experience with him that the boxing guys had, and I think that the flip side is that his handlers, Cuss, and the guys who were around after Cuss, they turned him into such a lucrative attraction to this day that he had the capacity to corrupt everything around him, including himself. Because like no one was going to say no. You just had to keep the train going. Very much like, I guess, it's like a rock star.
Right.
You know, if you're in the entourage, no one's saying no.
What was he all? Was he all an illusion? Looking back on it,
No, not at all. I mean, the knockouts were an illusion.
but as a fighter, right?
No. I mean, look, in the latter half of his career, he was getting by on fear and reputation, and people were completely addicted to him. So he'd get $30 million paychecks after he'd gotten out of prison. And then he ran into Evander, who, I don't care, God wants me to win. And Lennox Lewis, who is a great, great fighter and underrated because he's not particularly charismatic. Mm-hmm. But the seeds for that were sown in either of their adolescences. But what Tyson did on the way up is without precedent. Like, look, I cover kids for ESPN. Getting them back into the ring is like a never-ending psychodrama. If you can get them back in the ring. Tyson fought 15 times in the lead-up to his first title with Trevor Berbick. And the idea that those guys were all tomato cans is BS. They were trained American heavyweights, most of them. Some of them pretty good fighters. But if you think about that, 15 times in the year leading up to your first title shot, come on, forget about it. That ain't going to happen today. And it'll never happen again.
No. What fascinates me too is that time period. Because you mentioned Atlantic City, you mentioned Trump, you mentioned crack, right? New York, and what New York was like, what he was like. And it was almost like if you look at our society, it's almost like the last kind of uniqueness. It was the underbelly exposed. It was raw. And he's like the face of it all, right? Like, I think about it. Like, now everything seems manufactured and fake and it's all fugazi. But back then it was like real life. Like it was, and I think of him as like the face of our generation. Like, you know, I think back, I'm his age or a little younger, but
he was, I mean, he was that pervasive.
Yeah.
He was that pervasive. Could you hold on for a sec?
Yeah, in fact,
hold on. Yep.
Why don't you give me a minute while I take some commercial? We got to do a couple things. Let's talk about some of our friends and colleagues, right?
Yeah.
Let's
talk about True Mark.
Love Kelly.
All right, yeah. Well, summer's here, which means kids are out and about, hanging with friends, maybe even picking up a summer job. So it's a perfect time to set them up with something that teaches real-world money skills and gives them a little freedom. Something like the Greenlight debit card and money app at TrueMark Financial. If you're a TrueMark Financial member, you can get a free Greenlight account for your kids or teens. It's a simple way for them to manage their own money, whether it's from a job, an allowance, birthday cash, or if graduation's coming up. They'll get their own debit card, they can set savings goals, track spending, and learn how to budget, all while you stay in the loop from your phone. You're still in control, but they get to learn how real money works in everyday life. So before the summer rush kicks in, this is a great way to help your kids build smart money habits that'll stick with them the rest of their lives, not only when the season ends, and they'll be thankful for it in the end. So head over to TrueMark.com/Greenlight and get all the details and sign up today. And don't miss this chance to set your kids up for financial success with this cool debit card and money app. TrueMark.com/Greenlight.
I like it. All right, let's talk about Parks Casino. all the roads this summer leads to Parks with all the great entertainment, the Excite Center, all the great acts that come through Parks. We talk about boxing and MMA, all at Parks Casino. This is how you win. Coming up, here you go. Some of our favorite bands, like yours, Kansas.
Carry on your wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done.
You can sing it. Mark's going to call it.
I don't want to make him wait.
He's coming
Listen to
October
this.
4th. Comedian Joey Diaz, August 23rd. You got all kinds of great stuff. Don't forget, we got Gary Clark Jr., July 3rd, July 12th. Mark Norman, the great comedian, UB40, September 6th. Comedian Russell Peters, September 27th. Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers. That's right. Bill Murray and Night of Blues and Old Time Rock and Roll at Parks Casino. Don't forget dinner and drinks before the show. Liberty Hill Gastropub and Beer Garden, Parks Grill Steakhouse, Bamboo Noodle House, Chickies and Pete's, ParksCasino.com to buy tickets for all shows. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You got to be 21. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thanks, buddy. We're back with Mark Kriegel, my friend, and who I'm extremely proud of. Baddest Man, the Making of Mike Tyson. You have to get it. Summer reading. It doesn't get better than this. Cultural icon, and really the story, the unmasking of what that whole thing was like for all of us. I love the fact that you chose that time period, because everything after that was kind of not as meaningful. Like the true story, what captivated us happened during that period. What made you decide to go that route?
Well, again, I didn't. It was a decision that happened in the writing. I mean, at first, I owed the publisher money, and on another book didn't work out, and I tried a couple things, and I was really happy doing this ESPN boxing gig. Best job I've ever had. I didn't feel the need to necessarily go back into writing books, because some guys write hard, some guys write easy. I'm always going to write hard. I'm always just going to bleed it out.
You should see him when he was writing a column. He was neurotic.
I was nuts. I mean, smoking and,
yeah, by the way, thanks, because I started smoking because of you. I thought you were cool, and I thought that's how you become a great writer.
Yeah, you schmuck. So again, my first kind of way into this was, can I make it like some kind of an essay type book, maybe about writers and fighters and learning to write, or not, whatever
right.
BS I'd come up with. I think the publisher just wanted to get the damn thing off his books, so he said, yeah, sure. And as I'm doing it, he generates so much story, it becomes more of a proper biography. And as I start writing it, it's coming out a little bit fuller than I would have anticipated. And I sit down with the publisher, with the editor, a couple of years later, and he goes, wow, I'm really happy with this. This is great. Keep going, keep going. I said, yeah, well, you got about 80,000 words there. And I think he's still 16 years old, which is considerably more than we had bargained for. And he thought about it. And you can't write these type of door stoppers today. Like Namath would not have been possible. Plus, I should have edited, but I should have edited Namath. I should have trimmed it down a little bit. I didn't know. I thought that
Namath was
just delivering.
That was a gem. Namath was perfect.
Yeah, it might have. Well, I love
Namath.
It could have used some cutting. Could have used a lot of cutting, actually. But in any event, today's audience can't take that many words. At least not the people who read my books. But so we have this. He asked this question, if you're going at that rate, you're going to wind up with a book that's unconscionably, just a huge door stopper. And my reaction when he first says, is there a place you can end and do a part 2? And of course I said, absolutely not. Because I wanted the payoff for Evander. I wanted the payoff for Lennox. I wanted the payoff for all sorts of stuff. But the more I thought about it, the more he was correct. And the highlight, there is a natural break, which is the Spinks fight. You have this moment where, Trump is ascendant, and Tyson, it's certainly the high point of his career. And also everything's been put into place almost perfectly for him to have like the roller coaster is about to head down fast. And that's where you leave off. But at that point, and there's a back page of your former paper, the New York Post. There's a back page that says "Baddest Man on the Planet," and it seemed to me that was the best place to end it, unless you wanted like a 6,000-page book, which I didn't have in me. So that's a long answer to your question, Cos.
Would you go? Will you write a second part?
I presume so, yeah.
Because there is a lot. There's so much.
I got to get my game face back on.
Like that bite fight was still. I mean, that whole period with Evander was one of the most fascinating.
There's a. I don't know if you've gotten to it yet, but there's a. How do I say it? There's a hint in here that I think if you read, you go, oh yeah, about the bite fight. There's a prominent biting incident in his history, not his history, but a story that's explained to him and related to him by Cuss that I think it's not an excuse,
right?
But it certainly makes you think about what the kids were being taught in Catskill and how he concocted in his mind under intense pressure a way out, why he did that particular thing.
What do you
tell me if I'm right or I'm full of it.
Yeah. What do you make of the Catskills? Like,
what do you mean?
So the Catskills, this mythical, you think about the entertainment.
The Catskills were all the yids like me went to vacation, the mountain. No, you're talking about Catskill.
Correct.
Be more specific.
When you think about that train, like that place, what were you able to recreate from it?
I mean, I think I recreated it in good measure. I mean,
right? Like what
you had all these damaged children, under, being led by Cuss.
Right, and my point is that what when you look at that place, what's the feeling that you get from it? Like, is it a place of sadness? Is it a place of redemption? Is it a place of horror?
It's not a place of horror. Although, I mean, like, it wouldn't be allowed to happen today. If you follow what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
And I'm not, I deal with that issue, and I don't have anything, new to tell you on that. But this crazy, brilliant old man and a bunch of fighters, young kids. Yeah. Some of them who, are out of like jail or juvenile detention, whatever, and his Ukrainian wife feeding him. It's a little bit nuts, you know. Pretty much, it's a little bit, and he's talking to him about like, Jack Dempsey and this one and that one, and they're all real. There's a scene in there. They're so real, and to me, the pressure is so intense on Tyson that I'll give you this story, and this is like Tyson has an almost Talmudic understanding of boxing history.
Yeah.
So much so, and he has all the fight films there because Jimmy Jacobs, who was D'Amato's protege, and a guy named Bill Caton, who was a money guy, have all the fight films in the world. So Tyson has this incredible visual library as well at his complete disposal. So a little bit after the Olympics, but before he turns pro, a friend of mine's watching him watch tape of Sonny Liston. I believe he's fighting Cleveland Williams. All right. And 17 years old. And Tyson starts to weep. Guy says, what's going on? What are you crying? Yeah, well, what are you crying for? I can never beat him. He's dead. What do you mean? He's dead. You're alive. You're never going to fight him. Oh, no. I fight him all the time. When do you, up here? He points to his temple.
Wow.
So, I mean, It wasn't just about beating like whoever it was in his division, like Terrell Biggs. He's got him doing battle against all-time greats. You're literally fighting ghosts. So, is it a poetic story? Yeah. I'm not excusing Mike. I don't think I've ever excused Mike. But is there an ungodly amount of pressure on him? He's fighting not just the guy in front of him, but the ghosts. You know, he's after immortality from the time he's 13. This I always found striking, and it's in Tyson's own books, which I recommend as well. They're actually the most eviscerating athlete memoir since Raging Bull or Joe Pepitone's You Could Have Made Us Proud. But Tyson takes it to a new level. But one of the stories, and it's incredibly germane to the subject, is you take a kid out of prison and you put him under hypnosis and you tell him, your jab is a battering ram, you're a fearsome machine, you're a scourge from God. Well, what the hell did you think was going to happen?
Right.
I'm supposed to be surprised?
God, right.
A 15-year-old under hypnosis, you're a scourge from God. This story is going to turn out great.
That's the truth.
But Tyson loves cuss, and I understand why.
Yeah.
And what's less understandable and more beautiful is the idea that, how the hell did he get through all of this, to a place where he's watching this kid play tennis?
Amazing. I could see how he became real then. I could see how that was the moment where he ceased becoming this illusion or this whatever he was at that point to becoming real flesh. He's such an interesting, it's so fat. The subject is amazing. I can go on all day, brother. In fact, I want to do a part 2 with you before you write part 2. I have a million things to go over. I'm going away in a couple weeks, and I'm going to finish it.
You finish it, we'll talk.
And then I really want to dive in with you.
You may hate it when you finish it.
I've loved everything you've written. Even your on the mark.
God bless you.
Your little on the mark stuff. Even though you were at Gallo, who was my sports editor at the Post, used to say that I was a Kriegel wannabe. That you, yeah, idolized.
That's a bad
Kriegel.
snap, man.
Brother, I wish you the best. We're gonna promote this big time on the network, and I love it. Proud of you, man.
I miss you, cuz I really do. When you're out in California, you got to give me, when you're doing all your movie deals.
I like it.
You got to give me a heads up, all right?
Sounds like a plan, brother.
Later, kid.
Love you, baby.
Best
See
of
you,
the
brother.
family, all right?
Thanks,
Later.
man.
Thank you.
The great Mark Kriegel.